Hello everyone and welcome to our normal online lectures, and today we are going to look at few things in the subject of microbiology. And here we are going to look at the various types of microbial infection, microbial foodborne infections, how we get contact with foodborne infections. And then these foodborne diseases are classified into three main categories. As you can see here, the first one is the intoxication, and then the infection, and then the toxico-infections. Now we are going to look at what these things mean, because the main reason why we classify these foodborne diseases into three main categories basically depends on the presence of viable cells and then the presence of toxic, we call it profound toxic, in the food. When you look at the intoxication, intoxication comes when we have no viable cells in a particular food, but we have some profound toxic in the food. And when you consume these foods that contains these profound toxics, you get certain infections. If a particular disease comes through this way, it definitely belongs to the intoxication infections. So intoxication stage, here there is no viable microorganism, no viable cell at all, but we have some chemicals, we have some toxic substances that the microorganisms left in the food before they die. So those are what we call profound toxics. Okay, so that is intoxication. Intoxication simply means there is no viable cell because this bacteria, they comes into the food and then they release their toxic materials, but they die. So during the time of infection, there is no viable cell in that particular food, but we have some toxic chemicals, substances that these bacteria left in the food. So when we look at the infection, it is the reverse of this process, because in the infection stage, we have a viable cells. Even though the number of viable cells depends, it varies, but it is normally very low. And then that is the reason why you get access, you get contact with the diseases that comes in the form of infections. So at the infection stage, we have a very small number of viable cells. Very small number of viable cells. So when we look at the toxico-infections, it is also the reverse of the infection. In toxico-infection, as the name implies, toxico-infection, small number of viable cells. But this one, the number of viable cells reaches at a very toxic level. That is why we call it toxico-infection. So which means here will be very large number of viable cells. So these are the three main categories of the foodborne diseases. And then the examples of infections that comes in a form of toxico-infection here will be like salmonella, and then the hepatitis infection also is an example of this one. So an examples of infections that comes in the form of this one would be like parapharyngitis. Parapharyngitis is an example. Parapharyngitis is an example of this. These infections, parapharyngitis. Yes. Gastrointestines. Diseases. And then examples of toxico-infection will be like this one. Okay, so these are the various forms of microbial foodborne infections. I hope it is going to help you in dealing with your basic microbiology problems. So I thank you all for listening to this lecture. Any doubt or any question that you might have regarding this lecture, don't hesitate to write your question under the video at the channel as I respond to you, and then enjoy the video.